everyone. Thank you for joining us again. And I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land where we are here in Byron Bay. This is a Ruckwell land from the Bundjalung Nation, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners past, present and emerging of the land on which we meet and which I'm sitting. So thank you everyone from around Australia and around the world. And I can see Louise has just joined us from Belgium, which is fantastic, for our second webinar on parenting in a time of crisis. And I am really hoping that the video quality this week will be better. I'm sorry that last week it wasn't as good as we would have liked. We are also in quarantine here. And so we've tried to do what we can to set up the best studio that we can, but we know, and with limited Wi-Fi, that it wasn't ideal last week. Please let us know how it is this week, and possibly by next week we'll have a different venue that will be better, but we'll see how we go. So tonight, I'm going to review some of the things that we talked about in our first webinar, especially things that people have contacted me about and would like more information on. And then I'm going to be looking at more elements around the Rite of Passage and how the coronavirus pandemic is in fact a rite of passage. We're going to be looking at the behavior of young children and teenagers and how it's different in those different groups and how we can work on managing that. We're going to be talking about how parents can be looking after themselves and how important it is, if we're going to be parenting well, we also need to be in a good space and in good shape ourselves. We'll talk about building community, and we're going to go over some of the amazing opportunities that will be arising from the fact that we are having this period of time in isolation or quarantine. And here in Australia and around the world, there is no doubt that the coronavirus is spreading, and we see it on the news all the time, how many countries are being overwhelmed and that their medical resources have been stretched probably beyond the limit. Tragically, also many of the the healthcare workers are being infected and death rates have gone up. So we know that this is an unfolding tragedy in many places, and we know that in third world countries and different parts of the world, it is really only just starting. And we are in unknown times. We are definitely in a transformational period, and our wishes and our hopes and our prayers go out to all of those who are affected by this pandemic, and we really hope that you will be doing everything you can to keep yourselves safe, to look after yourselves, and hugely importantly, that we are protecting our elders and the people in our communities who are vulnerable. So a moment just to really put it out there for the people who are unwell at the moment, and we really wish them a full recovery. So in the first webinar I did, I talked about how important it is to be able to monitor on a daily basis the well-being of our children and everybody in the family, and that one of the best ways to in fact do that is through a check-in when we can sit together as a family and have a moment where each person checks in. And my recommendation was that you do that using a talking object, which can be a stick, a piece of fruit, it can be a fork, a spoon, it can be a crystal, it can be a precious object from the family, anything. But the most important thing is that when we do a check-in, only the person holding the talking object speaks, everybody else listens, we don't interrupt them, that we ask that the person who's holding the object doesn't talk about their theories around life, and that it is a confidential conversation, so whatever we hear in the check-in is stays there, so that we're trying to create a safe space where our children and everyone can genuinely share what's going on for them. Now, I received quite a lot of information from people asking me to expand more on what should be covered in a check-in. So we're actually, we've developed something called a golden check-in, and we'll show you a slide on that. And if we use the letters in the word golden, that can help guide us and everyone in the family around what we check in about. And the G stands for how am I going? The O stands for what's been keeping me occupied? What have I been doing since we last checked in? The L stands for what have I liked, or what have I enjoyed? The D stands for is there anything that's been difficult since we last checked in? The E stands for is there anything I'm excited about that's coming up? And the N stands for what do I need? And if we teach each other, and we can learn and remember to follow the 3 rules and then use the letters of the word golden, then we can have what I believe will be really good check-in. So if I was going to have a check-in and talk about how am I going, well, you know, interesting. In some ways, I'm going really well because I'm really enjoying doing this work and being at home. And in other ways, I'm finding this whole experience is waking me up in the middle of the night, and I, you know, there's some stress around the fact that there's a lot to do, and so actually, I'd have to say how I'm going is a lot of mixed emotions coming around at the moment. What's kept me occupied and what have I been doing? We've been creating an online business, setting up here in the house with the family. And all of that, I've been surprised how busy I've been just from being at home. What I've liked and enjoyed is the conversations I've been having with people, actually having the time with family and ringing up people who I love but haven't rung up for a while and had a chance to connect with them. What's been difficult is that I actually haven't slept that well. And I've been waking up thinking about things. Plus, I employ a team of people and we don't actually have any income at the moment. So that's difficult, trying to work out how we manage all of that. What I'm excited about that's coming up, well, I've decided I'm going to build a vegetable patch out the front of my place here. And I've been sort of thinking in my head about how I'm going to design that and how I'm going to get the soil and the seedlings and everything like that. So I'm excited about that. And what do I need? I need a good night's sleep. I would say that's something that I need, and that would actually do me a lot of good. So that is my golden check-in for today. All right, now I also have my trusty fireman with me again this week, Saxon, my 17-year-old stepson, and I'm going to ask him just to keep on the fire and make sure that we have a nice fire going back there. And we've been collecting wood today and making sure that we have plenty. All right, so I want to talk more about this idea of a rite of that the coronavirus pandemic is in fact a rite of passage, and at its core, a rite of passage is a transformation. It's something that changes you, and I actually believe in my work, which very much centers around rites of passage and transformations. I believe that life is a series of transformations. From the time we're born until eventually we pass on, we go through a series of transformations, and we have a slide to show this. And I think of it often as that it's like a staircase, and that progressively over time, we move up the staircase. So we start off as a baby, and then we move and we become a child, or we become a young adult. We become an older adult, maybe we become a parent, an elder, a grandparent, and each person is different, and each person has different steps on their staircase, but that we are moving up the staircase. And each of those steps is in fact a transformation. So how a child thinks and acts will be different from how a baby thinks and acts. And how a young adult thinks and acts will be different from how a child does, and how, you know, an older adult or a parent will be different from a teenager, and an elder will be different from an adult. So all of these stages are different, and we go through a transformation as we move from one stage to the next. And a rite of passage has been used for thousands of years in traditional communities around the world to actually create these transformations. And last week we looked at the different stages of a rite of passage, and we're going to have a look at them again and talk about today where we are in those stages so that we can understand how we can best manage what's actually going on. We talked about how in terms of a transformation, it's like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. And a caterpillar goes along in life as a caterpillar, and then at a certain time builds a cocoon, goes into the cocoon, undergoes a transformation, and eventually leaves the cocoon as a butterfly. And actually, the cocoon is the container in which the caterpillar stays until the transformational process is finished and it comes out as a butterfly. Now, we have been moving from our stage where we are in the normal world as, let's say, a caterpillar, and we have been separating and we've been moving into this container. And some people, so we got a, we've been separating from our day-to-day lives. Part of the rite of passage is to separate from what you would normally be doing. So in our case, we are, if we look at the coronavirus as a rite of passage, we're separating from work, separating from the people we normally spend time with, we're separating from going out, we're separating from a lot of things that are normal for us, and we're moving into this container. And Ward from Belgium, who spoke to us at the beginning of this webinar, sent a chat, they've actually been in quarantine for 3 weeks. So they have actually been in the container now for 3 weeks. Here in Australia, most of us are just moving in. And in fact, when we created our webinar and when I spoke last week, a lot of us were still, and I think many people are still in that in-between place where we're doing things that we would normally do. We're still going to the shops and people are still going to work, and, you know, there are still people in the streets, but there has definitely been a big shift since last week. And many of us, and me included in my family, we are now in the container. We have now separated from what we normally do, and we are now spending time in the container, and we will stay here for as long as it takes. And it might be a month, it might be 3 months, but we will stay in this container, and we will leave as little as possible just to get food when we absolutely need to, and hopefully only once a week, and we will stay here. Now, I also talked about last week how normally, you know, when you're going into this container, there may well be a period where you get enrolled and you decide and you see that it's going to be good for you and there'll be some benefit for you, and you come into the container. And we talked about children, and actually for a lot of the children, the enrollment didn't really happen, and they didn't, you know, they didn't really have a lot of choice. And in fact, you know, my stepson, he really wasn't particularly happy about coming into the container. He didn't want to have to leave his friends, and he didn't want to have to stop going out with people, and he didn't want to have to stop doing his day-to-day stuff. So his enrollment actually, instead of being, in fact, an enrollment at all, has turned into he's had to submit to what's going on. And there will be many people around the country and around the world who, instead of being enrolled into the container and seeing it as, you know, seeing it as safe and the benefits from it, there will have been the fact that they will have to submit and come into the container. But what we're seeing more and more now is that there is less fighting going on. There are people accepting that the place we need to be, and in fact the safest place for us now, is to be in quarantine, is to be in the container. And you know, absolutely all over the news consistently we're seeing, we're being told, stay home, don't go out. that will be best for you, and that will be best for everyone else. And so now what it comes down to is, how do we be in this container in the best way possible? How can we spend our time here in a healthy way? And also, how can we support our children who are here in the best way within the container? And I want to talk about the difference between what's going to go on for younger children compared to teenagers. And when I talk about younger children, let's say 10, 11 and younger, how are they going to be in the container in the period of time when they're in quarantine and can't go out? And then I'll talk about what's going to happen with teenagers. And very much with the younger children, they will adapt and they will accept being in the container. And it's very much what we set up and what we create for them that will make a difference as to how well they go during this time in the container. So it's like, you know, we're setting up a new world for them. And the world now is staying at home. Activities will be at home. Schooling will be at home. And the different things that we do are all going to happen around the home. And the better that we can do that, and the better we can be in our own selves as parents, the better it's going to be for our children. So we have some principles that we use that we know works very well for children. And I'm going to describe them. And they're also, I have an ebook of parenting strategies, and I'm going to send you a link to get a free copy of that ebook. So there are a few things that we recommend. And the first, and I mentioned them briefly last week, and the first is, during this time in the container, one of the great things to do is to choose something with each of your children that you would like to do one-on-one together, and do it regularly, preferably daily. Make it your special time one-on-one with that child. And it may be, you know, you might play a game together, you might kick a football if you're allowed to go outside, you might build something, you might read a story, you might have a show you watch on TV or Netflix, anything like that. But if you can find something one-on-one that you do with your child, that's a great thing to do. The next thing that's really special to do with children is to share stories. To share stories about when you were their age, things that happened for you, things that they haven't heard of. You know, use this opportunity for them to find out things about you that they don't already know. So spending one-on-one time sharing stories. Another very important thing is to acknowledge them when they do something well. So if they help out with something, or if they get their homework or their schoolwork done without you having to tell them, or if they're loving to you or to their brother or sister or anything like that, if they do something well, acknowledge that. It's a positive reinforcement cycle that is extremely valuable for children. And the final one that I want to talk about is when they act out or muck up or do something that they shouldn't have done, what's really important is to separate the person from the behavior. So we're not shaming them and telling them that they're useless or they're bad or anything like that. We name, well, what I like to say, look, I love you and I know you're beautiful and everything like that, but what you did was not okay, and maybe this is how it made me feel. So really trying to be disciplined to separate the person who we love from the behavior which we don't love and which is not okay. And we can talk about the behavior, but without shaming the child. And the other thing I would say is that if they are acting out, we just need to check in if anything else is going on for them. Because one of the things that we absolutely know with young children is that when they're not okay inside, that is when they are more likely to act out. So if they're doing things they wouldn't normally do, if you're worried about their behavior, it's a really good idea when you have your check-in, your golden check-in, to see if there's anything that they want to share with you, or maybe just take them aside and talk to them. But it is a sign that there may be something going on that is a problem for them or that they're worried about. And possibly when you do your one-on-one time together, they may share with you, but it's just a flag that there may be something going on. Okay, teenagers are different. I wish, and I'm sure that there are thousands of parents out there who wish that we had a magic simple bullet for teenagers, but it's not that simple. And one of the things I did say is that they're all different. And there will be some teenagers who really love the idea of being at home with their parents. But there are other teenagers who will be grieving. There will be teenagers who are grieving the fact that they're not at school. There will be teenagers who are grieving the fact that they can't spend time with their best friends, or they may have girlfriends, boyfriends, partners. They can't go out and do the things that they would normally do. They can't go to the movies. They can't go to the skate bowl. They can't go and hang out with each other. So for many teenagers, this is actually a very difficult period of time. And it is really important that, first of all, we give them an opportunity to name that if it's something that they want to do, and to know that for many of them, it is difficult. And hopefully in our check-ins, they will feel safe enough to share that. And they may not say what we want them to say, but the best thing for them to be able to share is just how they're actually feeling. And then the other thing that I strongly advise, if there's one thing that you hear from my webinar tonight in terms of how you are with teenagers, it is this: look for the moments. Look for the moments when they're connecting with you. And it may be late in the evening when you're watching something on TV and they come and snuggle in with you. Or it may be when you're having breakfast, or it may be when you're just doing something and all of a sudden you notice that they're there. Look for those moments, because those moments will happen. They may be surly and they may be disconnected and may be extremely unhappy about the idea of having to spend all this time with you, their parents. But there will be moments. And it's in those moments that you can connect with them. And it's in those moments that you can, ask them how they're going, if there's anything that they need. And it's in those moments that you can maybe say, hey, is there anything that we could be doing together? And if you can find those moments, because when they're angry and when they're acting out, that is definitely not the time to be telling them what to do or saying what has to happen or any of those sorts of things. So if you can wait for those moments, that is when you'll create the connection with them. Saxon back here, who's doing my fire, maybe come and say hello, Saxon. People like seeing you last week. Here's Saxon. How are you going this week, Saxon?
Definitely better than I was in the previous week.
Yeah. So Saxon, who is a fabulous kid and an absolute super talent, can do just about anything he puts his mind to. I think we probably wouldn't disagree that you weren't hugely happy about having to come up here and leave home and certain things that were happening. Yeah. And we had a difficult day, but we were able to talk about it in a check-in. And it was really great when Saxon was able to share and we gave him some space. And then we had a moment when we went on the land and we looked at some stuff and we were able to just talk and we found that moment. And it's been interesting. It's been more than interesting. It's been fantastic to see Saxon accepting more being here and helping out more. And he mowed the lawn and he's doing the fire. And just in a few days, we've seen a fantastic change with Saxon, and he's actually been a pleasure to be with. So thank you, Saxon, for what you're doing, and thank you for being how you're being while you're up here. And he's still going to keep doing the fire. So if we can look for those moments, it's a really important thing. And we also talked about the homeschooling last week and how many parents were really struggling with homeschooling. So we'd love to get some feedback there. And I talked about how the National University of Singapore had come up with 9 key 21st century life skills that had been found in research to be as important, if not more important, for children to learn during their time at school. And we mentioned those last week. And I would like to just explore a couple of those life skills, but just to name them: resilience, curiosity, adaptability, have insight, empathy, emotional sensing, entrepreneurial thinking, to pursue their convictions and what they believe in, and have a vision for the future and to contribute. And also we will send you out a link to these 9 21st century life skills that you'll be able to get after the webinar. But one of the really big things we know with children and parenting is that they actually learn a lot more from what we do and from watching us than from what we say. And so if we can also exhibit these 21st century life skills, that is a much better way of teaching our children about them than saying, oh, you have to be curious and you have to be adaptable. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about curiosity and adaptability and the fantastic opportunity we have during this time. And so curiosity is this idea of just trying things. Oh, I've got a big moth that's flown in here for the lights. Curiosity, it's very interesting. Google in America allows their employees something like a day, 1 in 5 days, somewhere up to 20% of their time, they are allowed to spend looking at things that are not actually their core work. And they do that because the Google believes that curiosity is very healthy for someone, and in that time, they're likely to discover new things that could actually be good for the people and good for work. So we have a great opportunity here during this time of isolation to do things that we are curious about, but that we wouldn't normally do. And that may be learning something new online or practicing something or trying out something, all sorts of different things. And I have no doubt that when our children see us trying out new things, and if we tell them that we're using this opportunity to try new things, that is a great way of encouraging them to also be curious about things that they haven't done. And if they show, if they express that they're interested in trying new things, that's a great time for us to talk to them and say, okay, what would you like to try and how can I help you with that? The next one is adaptability of the skills that I'd like to mention. And look, we are in a completely different situation. We are now at home for 24 hours a day, whereas in the past, many of us spent a lot of our time in other places and at work. So it's also a great time to model adaptability and to set up our house differently and to show our children that despite the fact that the situation has changed so dramatically in many cases, that we can adapt, that we can do things differently, and that even in that adaptability, we can not only do things differently, but we can do it well. And I would really encourage you to use your creativity to adapt and find different ways to do things. And that is fantastic modeling for your children. And if they are interested in these 21st century life skills, another great thing to do would be to actually print them out and to show them to your children and to see if they have anything that they want to say about them and whether they think that that's, anything that they could potentially explore themselves. Now, we really do have a choice during this time that we are in isolation, lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it. We can do it well. And my aim in my own life and with my family and the reason we're doing these webinars is we really want to support you to do this well. And unfortunately, we know not everybody will do it well. And I got a question or a statement from my friend Ward in Belgium, who was talking to me about scenarios where people are not doing it well. And this comes down, a big part of it, to us as parents. And we need to be looking after ourselves. And we need to be actually spending time thinking about not only how are my children going to be doing it well, but how can I do it well? And I would really recommend to all parents that we sit down, if there are other parents in the house or people we're talking to on the phone, or even just to make a list of some personal agreements and to consciously think about how we do want to do it well. So do we want to exercise even though we are stuck at home? And how do we want to eat? And really importantly, how much alcohol do we want to drink? And are we going to make health as a priority? How much are we going to work as opposed to having downtime with the family? And even to create agreements with the family and to use our check-ins in a really positive way. So, for example, you know, when Saxon and I were having some struggle last week, I talked about it in the check-in. And I talked about how I was feeling about what was going on. And even though Saxon didn't actually say anything in the check-in, not a question his behavior changed afterwards, which one shows what a special and beautiful young man Saxon is, in that he listened and changed his behavior. But it's also, you know, it's a great way of, by checking in, improving our behavior. And what I really worry about with parents is that if we don't do this well, the danger is that parents get angry with each other. The danger is that children get angry with each other and their parents. The danger is that dysfunctional behaviors start to really come into the family. And you know, even tragically, we know that domestic violence is a huge worry at this time. And, you know, there are governments putting in a lot of money towards domestic violence issues, but we would much rather, you know, how can we be doing everything we can to be preventing this? So it's a big problem, and we really, really need to be consciously saying, I want to do this well. And part of doing it well is thinking about it, making lists, sharing with other people in the household around how we're going to do it well, and checking in about the thing that we've done and how that's going. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. And once again, I've said it before, our children will be watching us, and the leading by example is so enormously important. The next thing that I want to talk about, I've only got a couple more things, but it's around community. So part of a rite of passage is supposed to be that it's done within a community. And we have the community within our family and the people who are together in our house, and the, you know, the better we can all get on and the more we can support each other, check in, do new things, all of those things, the stronger the community will actually create within the house. But we also have this great extended community, you know, all around the world. And the fabulous thing about technology is that we can be talking to people and we can actually be seeing them. So once again, I'd really encourage you to make a list of your best friends, family, people that you love, and to be ringing them up and using video where possible and talking to them and finding out how they're going. The family here has also started something where once a week we get the extended family on Zoom, so we can see grandparents and the next generation and the grandchildren, and all of us are on Zoom, and we all go around, we all have a check-in, we all talk about, you know, what's going on, how we've been going, and it's very special. And that's also another way of building community. This Saturday night, I'm actually hoping to have a virtual dinner with my partner who's here with me, Katrina, and two other couples that we know. And that's also a way of keeping community. I've had many, many emails and phone calls from people around the world. And I think I mentioned it before, but I'm trying every day to ring up 1, 2, 3 people who I love and who I haven't spoken to for a while, but who I'd really like to connect to. So really making that conscious effort to build the community and stay strong with those who are around me. And finally, I would like to talk about the opportunities that are arising here. And I just believe we have enormous opportunities. Yes, I'm hugely worried about what's going to happen to the elderly and people within the family, and that will remain a concern for me throughout this whole period of time. But at the same time, also looking at the opportunities. And, you know, I believe we have this very rare time when we can review our lives, we can review our relationships, we can think about what's important to us. If people write diaries, we can spend time writing in our diaries. If we want to spend time on it, meditating, doing things. And it's actually a chance to reset and refresh what we're doing. It's a time to connect with the people in our house who are with us and people around us, and to go to another level. And it's a time to really think about, you know, what is important to me. And what have I been doing with my life? What are the things that I want to keep on doing? And are there things that I've just been doing because I don't even know why I'm doing, I just do them, and I can let go of them. It's a time when I can review what I'm eating and how much I'm eating. It's a time I can review my exercise. It's really an incredible chance to take a breath. You know, I know in my life so often it's just so busy and it's crazy and I never seem to have time. And one of the things I absolutely intend to do during this period when I'm at home is to think about what is important to me. What are my values? How do I want to be as a father? How do I want to be as a partner? How do I want to be as a man in the world? And I don't expect that I'm going to work it out in the first 2 days. I don't expect I'm going to work it out in the first week. But I know I am setting myself an intention that while I am here in this period of time in isolation and quarantine, that I am absolutely going to use it in the best way possible so that eventually when I do come out at the other end, have as clear a vision as I can about who I want to be, about behaviors that I want to let go of, about how I want to spend the next stage in my life. And I believe, as well as the opportunity to build relationships and to grow community, the opportunity for us to reset and refresh around how we want to be is just enormous, and we can really take advantage of it. So thank you for listening tonight. I'd like to see if there are any questions here that are coming up. Someone said they've donated to us, which is very generous. Thank you very much. That's really, really appreciated. Are there any questions? Okay, here's a question. I'm struggling balancing full-time work and educating my children, and I'm a single parent. Okay, well, I am sure you are not alone in that, and it's a very big question and a huge question, how we balance all of that. And it's not an easy question. I think, you know, one of the things that I didn't speak to a lot before, and I meant to, so this gives me the opportunity, is that with our teenagers and our children, there is a degree to which we need to use this opportunity to allow them to work out what they're going to do with their day, especially with our teenagers. And I don't know, Catherine, how old your children are, but I know with teenagers, we can't get them to do their work and everything by a command and control method of telling them what to do. And we also can't baby them the whole time and make all their meals and make sure they're doing everything we need to do. At some point, they need to be making their own decisions. And the same with our younger children. You know, we need to be talking to them and saying, look, you know, I have work to do. And for the next period of time, you're going to have to, you know, do your own work or read your book or work out some activities. So a great thing to do is in your check-ins is to talk about how did it go in the last 24 hours since your last check-in, and what could we do better in the next 24 hours. And if you struggled to do all the work that you had to do and balance them, I would really encourage, share that with your children and tell them what's going on for you. Tell them how it's actually feeling to be trying to work and having them disturbing you or whatever's happening, and then see if we can do it better for the next 24 hours. There is no simple solution, but hopefully over a period of time we can get better at working out how we work together. And it is hard. And as a single mum, I really hear you that it can't be easy trying to do your work and balance your children, but hopefully by talking to them and sharing with how it's going on for them and making some agreements, it can be done as well as possible. So thank you for your question. And yes, I wish once again I had a simple answer for it. Someone's asking if it's useful to do check-ins with children younger than 5 years of age. I think it is. You know, they may not say anything, but we can do a 5-year-old check-in and just say how we're going. And, you know, if they don't have anything to say, that's actually okay. But they might, if you say, hey, what did you really enjoy today? or what would you like to do more with mummy or daddy, or anything like that. And I think some of the littlies will really love those check-ins and others won't. It won't be for them, and that's actually fine. But there's no harm in giving it a go, but remembering that they are 5 and they're not 15, and so it'll be a different check-in. Okay. How do we accept our elderly loved ones going to the shops and taking what we believe are risks? Okay, so that's a big one. I'm very uncomfortable with the elderly going to the shops. And when I have been down there and I've seen elderly, I've really encouraged them actually to be at home. There are more and more delivery services for people. There are more and more young people who will look after the elderly and deliver their food for them. I have a big worry with the elderly going to the shops, because I believe it puts them in a very high risk status. And I know there are more and more supports now for the elderly so that we can deliver them food at home. I would like to finish by just letting you know some things that we have for you and that we can support you with. I mentioned that the Parenting Strategies ebook that we used to sell on our website, we're now giving away. So there'll be a link on an email that will send you, or contact us at the Rites of Passage Institute, and you can download that free. If you want to download a copy of my book, The Making of Men, we'll also offer that free, and you can get the 21st Century Life Skills on our website. I launched this week a program on parents and children growing together in time of crisis. It's 7 modules that will send you once a day. It's a series of videos and workshops worksheets that together you do with your children. And it's based on the Rite of Passage framework that over 200,000 people around the world have now been through. You probably need about between half an hour and a day to do it together. Hopefully it's fun. And also it's a great way to do something really fantastic with your children. And you can also do it at your own pace. So if you don't want to do it once a day and you do it every 2 or 3 days, that's fine. Once you start, we'll keep sending you the modules, but you do them at your own pace. The link to that is also in the letter that we send you on our website. And we've been getting really great feedback from people who have been doing that course. We'll also have a link to this webinar if you want to download that and share that with people. And if you have any questions or things that you would like more information on, please send them to us, and we would be very happy to, if we can, support in whatever way we can. I'm going to do one of these webinars every week and explore further into the idea of the Rite of Passage and how what's going on is Rite of Passage and how we go through the different stages. And I'll try and answer as many questions as I can from people who are contacting us. And if there are new things that come up during the week, we'll be talking about that. Just going to see if there are any final questions. There's one around teenagers that like to sleep all day. Lots of things coming in around teenagers. And once again, at some stage, we have to say to our teenagers, look, this is an opportunity, and we can't make them take the opportunity. And some of them are going to sleep a lot, but hopefully, once again, in those moments, and we can get them into our check-ins, and we can get them talking about, what they've been doing or how they're going and what they've been doing. And it may just be that they've been sleeping, anything difficult, but also if there's anything they'd like to do and they're looking forward to. And, we have been here a week, and it's a long time, but in the bigger picture of what's going to happen, we still have a long way to go. So hopefully they will start coming out of their shells, and we can find things that are interesting for them and things that they're going to want to do. And slowly we can have conversations with them and encourage them and connect more and more with them. Once again, I wish there was a simple answer to that, but there's not, and they're all different, and we have to be doing the best that we can. But also, if you have a look in my book, The Making of Men, which, as I said, you can download free, I talk quite a lot about teenagers, and the parenting strategies also some great ideas around what you can do with teenagers. All of these resources are in the letter that we're going to send you, and will be on the website. Thank you. We'll be back here 8 o'clock next Wednesday night. I believe that daylight savings in New South Wales will finish between now and then. So for people overseas and in other parts of Australia, like Western Australia and Queensland, that will change the time for you. We will still be doing it at 8 o'clock New South Wales time. Seeing if I've missed anything. I probably have missed things. That's the way it goes, but we'll bring those in next week. Thank you to everyone in Australia and all around the world. Until next time, let's do this well, and let's do this together.